Let's analyze some comments. This guy is amazing. He went so far as to analyze the audio and found every sign of a live recording. But instead of coming to the logical conclusion that Hans lied, he validated the thesis of a mysterious sampling technology and that the only way the public could have something similar would be with the assistance of AI. This theory of a revolutionary technology raises two problems. Firstly, it doesn't correspond to what Hans said. Indeed, he insisted on the fact that achieving that kind of result is very easy. Just record your own samples with your friends. What a great advice. Not a single word about an advanced technology. While the only answer to give to people amazed by your work if it was carried out by a means inaccessible to them is to tell them the truth, isn't it? Otherwise, you mislead them. So either there is indeed an incredible technology behind this so-called mock-up, and in this case Hans took the members of the forum for fools, or there is no technology allowing to simulate such a great performance, and in this case everything leads to the conclusion that Hans lied, which is inconceivable for the members of this forum, because lying is a human weakness, and Hans Zimmer just can't have that kind of flaw, since he's the greatest composer of all time. He belongs to a flawless elite. It makes perfect sense. Anyway, in both cases, whether he lied or gave useless advice, it's very bad. The only thing that is out of reach of ordinary people in his so-called advice is the Stradivarius. This man lives in another world, and the fact that he is surrounded only by servile people ready to believe everything he says does not help. The second problem is that we are asked to believe in a mysterious technology when we do not perceive it in other pieces of the same soundtrack. Isn't this a professional mock-up that we are not supposed to underestimate? Why does it sound like it has been programmed by a beginner? Because it's not good at all. Aren't these tracks composed by Hans Zimmer for the very same movie? Aren't they produced at remote control, where there is supposedly an engine and some complex setups that can simulate flawlessly a recording at London, all this controlled by the best programmers and engineers out there, including the genius Hans Zimmer? Why then do these professional mock-ups sound like my ass? Why does this incredible technology coming from Krypton not shine here? Is this the kind of stellar mock-ups you are referring to? It's really bad, but good enough for a sketch. On the other hand, wanting me to believe that this piece from the same soundtrack was programmed with some magical virtual strings is an insult to intelligence and to the musicians involved. I'm focusing here on the strings because that's our subject, but the brass are no better. Each time Hans Zimmer tells incredible stories, there are always people popping up to reinforce the myth for some reason, coupled with moderation ensuring that our genius will never be in an uncomfortable position, meaning confronted with the truth. The problem is that the testimonies of this people do not correspond to reality, to what we hear and see. I will not dwell on her condescending tone, implying that people who doubt Hans Zimmer's claim don't know how a professional mock-up sounds like, when in fact it is exactly the opposite. Anyone who is not under the sectarian influence of Zimmer cult and who has a decent experience in programming and orchestral recording can only doubt. I'm fully aware that Hans has his own libraries, and there's no doubt that there are complex setups at remote control, which is quite normal since Hans has been working with samples for decades. But just because a setup is complex doesn't mean it can allow it to achieve miracles. The more time passes, the less remote control mock-ups impress. According to the poor quality of the mock-ups of this soundtrack, the claim that remote control would be high above the rest does not hold up. The truth is that everything we hear in track 7 corresponds to the official credits, London Recording Studios, Tina Gu, etc. Who would believe that 60 string players were credited in detail just to get some kind of compensation, while what we hear in the track 7 corresponds to 60 musicians recorded at London? Could someone explain to me the point of crediting 2 soloists as a kind of compensation, and moreover on this track only? Ask yourself this question, put aside your fanaticism and try to reason. As a professional musician, would you like to see your name associated with a virtual mock-up? I repeat, as a professional musician, would you like to see your name associated with a virtual mock-up? Would you find it rewarding? Wouldn't you be embarrassed? Isn't that a lie? Would you agree to be credited as a musician on an entirely virtual mock-up, knowing everyone will believe it's you? What a disgrace. To sum up, we have a track in which we can clearly hear soloists whose performance surpasses all virtual instruments. Curiously, the credits mention 2 soloists on the same track, but Hans asks us to annihilate our reason, namely to believe that he would have programmed the whole track and credited the soloist arbitrarily as a kind of compensation because he likes them. And if you don't believe him, you are either hateful or ignorant. How convenient. Instead of admitting that the case is quite ambiguous to say the least, he asked us to believe him, claiming that reaching this level is not that hard. Just record some friends and then use the modulation and the expression. As if the members of this forum were not all aware of the importance of these 2 basic controllers. His answer is as stupid, denigrating, and out of touch with reality as that of a mountaineer who, after having climbed the Himalayas blindfolded with his bare hands, would tell those who asked him how he accomplished such a feat that it is enough to drink water and sleep well. The craziest thing to me is that most of the members do not perceive the high level of contempt he has for them.